Hello, I'm Steve Jones, and I'm here to tell the story about this farm and the strange things that happened. I hadn't been here in 50 years, and when I get through, you'll know why. This farm was in my family for generations. My great-granddaddy, Benjamin C. Jones, he owned it first, and then my granddaddy, Benny, he owned it second. And then his cousin Charles and his son Albert had it. And Albert inherited after his father died. And he farmed it for quite a while till he got drafted into the Army. And he went to Vietnam. And when he was in Vietnam, he got assigned to a desalination plant where they created fresh water. And he served his tour of duty, and he came back here to Yorkville. And after he got back, he farmed and farmed, and did okay, but he didn't do like what he wanted to do. And he got to looking around Yorkville, and he saw that several families had prospered, and they were making moonshine. So Albert decided he might go into that business, so he looked at three families. One family was the Brown family, and they did okay and made a pretty good liquor. And the other family were the Moody's. They did okay and made a little bit better liquor, but the best liquor was made by the Hulsey family. And he saw that they prospered real well, so he bought a couple of quarts of Hulsey liquor and brought it back here and started working on his own formulas. And he finally created a formula in a liquor that was better than the Hulsey's was. And that turned into a real prosperous business. And that business expanded from Yorkville to northwest Georgia, over into Alabama, and word got out that he had the best liquor in the country. And the word got out so far that it made it to New Orleans. And a fellow by the name of Mike Gilrich Jr. found out about it. And he ran an operation called the Dixie Mafia. And he sent one of his toadies up here to cut in on Albert's business. So Albert wasn't happy with that, and he said some awful things about Mike, and word got back to New Orleans what Albert said, and Mike said that he'd get even with him. So he contacted his go-to witch doctor in New Orleans, which voodoo's real prevalent in New Orleans, and this witch doctor made up a potion, and he used it only in extreme circumstances, but the potion is made up of dry black dirt, toads, lizards, tarantulas, and ground up bones of a human baby, red Indian corn, a special yeast, and spring water. And he put it in a barrel and let it ferment for about 5 days, and then the witch doctor, he distilled it and made a liquor that smelled like liquor. It was clear, had the liquor taste, but it did awful things. And Mike got one of his toadies to bring it up here to this farm, and they watched the farm till Albert left, and he came in here and found a 5-gallon bucket of liquor Albert was getting ready to put up, and he poured it in that bucket. And after that, bad things started happening here at Yorkville. And a few days after that, got home from work. I just lived right over the hill here. And Albert's aunt called me and said that Albert comes over every Wednesday to eat supper, and he didn't show up, and she'd been calling and calling and calling and can't get him, and won't know if I'd go check on him. So I said, sure. So I came over here, and when I got here, this door, it was about cracked open about a foot, and I walked in. And when I walked in, I could see a few pieces of furniture turned over. And I finally got in towards the back room, and I could smell the smell of old dried blood. And I got in the back room, and it was covered in blood. And the walls were covered, and the floor covered, and the ceiling had blood splatter all over it. So I left and went up to a little store up here, Hess Locklear stores. He sold groceries and pure oil gas, and had a payphone. We didn't have cell phones back then. And so I called the sheriff, Bob Shipp, told him to come meet me up here, and he came up with one of his deputies. And they went in there, and Bob told me, he said, I've never seen so much blood in my life. And they took some blood samples and sent it off. We couldn't find Albert. And it came back, the blood samples was 3 different blood types. And one of them was O positive, which the Army record showed that Albert was O positive, but we couldn't really tell it was him because DNA hadn't been in, seen about by then. So anyway, we left, never saw Albert again. Then strange things started happening. Bob's chief deputy was Bill South. He lived over off of Crossroads Church Road. And Bill told me, he said, about once every week or two, he'd get a call that somebody found a dead body. And he'd meet them, and they'd go to where the dead body was, and people would say, well, he'd been there a long time because his face is disfigured and he smells. And they'd get there and there wouldn't be any bodies. He said that happened 6 times. But probably the strangest thing to happen was there's 4 girls here in Rockmart. In Yorkville. It's a Rockmart address. And there's Brenda, Gail, Martha, and Tony. And we had a kind of a community camping ground just right off the hill there. And we'd go build bonfires and camp out. And they went over there and got a couple of bottles of Boone's Farm. That's when, back in the day, Boone's Farm was real popular. And they built a big fire and was having a good time. It got time to go to bed. Well, they all got in their sleeping bags, and they heard some big noise outside, just outside in the dark shadows. And it scared them. Well, they snuggled up in their sleeping bags, and they heard another big noise. Well, Gail and Tony and Martha, they covered their heads up with the sleeping bags, and Brenda, she peeked out. She didn't cover her head, and she said that out of the darkness came these 3 giant man-like figures, and said they grabbed the tops of those sleeping bags and trapped those girls in them, and said she could hear the girls' muffled screams in the sleeping bag, and said before one of them got plumb out in the dark, he turned around, and she said that his neck was real thick and his head looked just like a black German Shepherd. And she heard them going on off and heard the muffled screams till it disappeared. Well, she left, called help. They came and searched and searched and searched, couldn't find anybody. So they finally determined that they were drinking or smoking dope or something, and she's making all this stuff up. Well, the 3 girls that disappeared, they didn't think too much about it, because back in those days, it wasn't unusual for teenagers to just jump in a van and go to California and never come back. Well, this happened and people started disappearing, and I kept hearing about it, but I didn't think anything about it till one night I came home. Like I said, I just lived right over there. And when I drove up, I stopped and my window was up, and I looked out and 2 figures were staring at me through my glass. And I could see the glowing eyes. And I scared me, and I backed up and shined my lights over there, and they disappeared. Well, after that, the next day I packed up and I moved back to Dallas. And that's one reason I hadn't been back here. And I want to tell you, 50 years is a long time. And I'm not going to stay here much longer, because I don't know what these people are doing here, but I do know one thing. If you come up here, you're crazy, and I'm out of here.
See you later. Nobody really gets away.